I had the terrific good fortune to be at the very first meeting of the RJOS now 40 years ago. I ran into women who knew about this semi-secret event that was occurring, and before I knew it, I was in a room of 43 well-dressed, poised, can-do ladies who were starting the RJOS. Well, I have been told, and I think it's correct, that I was the 75th woman to be board certified in orthopedics. But of that first 75, a lot of them were not ever part of Ruth Jackson. And I think I was incredibly lucky to have forged the bonds that I formed through the Ruth Jackson Society.
I think we as an organization were mostly there for personal support. It was nice to see a familiar face within the orthopedic community.
It was kind of an enclave of the very, very few women in orthopedic surgery. And it was kind of safe haven.
I was the president of Ruth Jackson Society from 1992 to 93. I had everybody home to my house for dinner. And I so remember Ruth Jackson sitting in my back room, smoking like a chimney, telling us, "You girls, I'm still very busy enough to have 3 girls in the office." And I'm going, oh my golly, when I'm that age, if I can possibly.
The early days at RJOS, I had the opportunity to know all of the presidents that preceded me. Lee Diamond was quite a character and was our first president. I knew Jacqueline Perry a little closer because I call her my mentor, and back then there really were no female mentors for me.
So I was the RJOS president from 2006 to 2007. I spoke about the lack of women in orthopedics, which remains today an issue, lack of women and underrepresented individuals.
I was Ruth Jackson president in 2015, and my contribution at that time was trying to develop the skill sets to compete for leadership roles, rather than complaining about how it's not fair.
It was a wonderful experience. I had some really fantastic women leaders that went before me, and it was really a place where I felt like I got my first experience being part of a big organization like that. And so it was really a great place to get my feet wet in a graduated leadership position.
I would say that one of the things that RJOS taught me about leadership is that leadership comes in many different ways, and that being a leader is not necessarily just being in charge of the room. It's also leading from the front, and that leading a group of really committed people is easy when you're all going towards a common goal.
I think throughout my training, going back to medical school and certainly residency and fellowship, the attitude about women in orthopedic surgery was not particularly a good one. There weren't many women around for even you to have as a mentor or role model if you happened to be female. And those that were in the field really had to fight a fight that was pretty monumental because of the barriers that existed.
There were a lot of negative things going on with women being accepted to programs but not supported and flunking out.
Well, back in 1985, I will say that in general, the environment was supportive and welcoming, but there were still macro and microaggressions that I experienced.
For me, during my training and into my orthopedic practice in sports medicine, it was really much easier to don't say anything, just keep going forward. Some things could maybe even be used in a negative way in your career.
I was training in the early 1990s. So I will tell you, when I was in medical school at Johns Hopkins and I thought about going into orthopedics, I was actively told that I would probably not get in, that because I was a woman. And I liked a lot of different fields, but as soon as someone said that, I said, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get in.
I think it's incredibly important for women to support each other because we are in the minority.
Mentorship is really critical for many reasons, and lack of mentorship is also an obstacle to people reaching their potential. And that's been a problem within orthopedics. When you don't have a lot of women, then you have to rely on men to help mentor women along, and that happens really well in some places and not so well in other places.
It's not just about supporting someone, getting them through residency. It's about getting them through life and surgery and all that comes with it.
I would like to continue to grow the mentoring program and to have everyone in orthopedics understand that you grow those below you, that it is our job and our responsibility to make the world better and make the orthopedic landscape better for those who come behind us.
When you're passionate about a career like orthopedic surgery like I am, and you happen to be a female, I think that we can reach more young females who are interested in orthopedics.
I would not be where I am today without the mentors that I've had. Dr. Lisa Canada is a traumatologist in orthopedics, and I worked with her in medical school. And she was one of the first women in orthopedics that showed me ortho is not just for the men. And we were doing trauma cases, which can be very physically demanding and strenuous on the body, and we were doing it just as good as the guys.
There are so many different ways you can mentor. You mentor by your examples of the way you carry yourself in the hospital, the way you interact with everyone in the operating room, the way you interact with your patients, the way you interact in clinic. You only have a small window to make a big difference, and every day I try to make a difference.
So I chose a career in academic orthopedic surgery to be at a major medical school so that there are medical students and young women who can see me, be in my operating room, know how I operate, so that they can see how this work can be done and that they can see it in themselves. And mentorship, although can be exhausting for a mentor, it really can be rewarding to watch a young medical student, a first-year medical student, go through their 4 years of medical school, and you help them successfully match into orthopedics. Because the more of us that we see, the less work it is for us as mentors in the future.
Women who have trod this road before are the ones who keep you from having to relive the mistakes that you might otherwise fear you'd make, or can help you to see around those barriers, things that seem immense. If you realize that other women have faced those, have conquered them, an organization can help you find those people, and in fact this one is designed to help you on that path.
We know that when there's diversity of thought, that we have better results, better outcomes, better ideas. And we know that all of the Fortune 500 companies that have women leadership or women on their boards do better than those that don't. So there's a very practical reason to support women in this field, and that is the field's going to be better off for it.
And the future is so bright because you look at these applicants that we have the privilege of meeting now, and these young women who just blow your socks off with how incredible they are, what their passion is, and what their goals and vision are for the future.
Merit trumps everything, and our female medical students, our female residents are just as good as their male colleagues. Just open your eyes and look. You'll see it if you bother to look.
It's not that people are scared anymore to talk about what could women do? What could we accomplish? Could we do this, that, and the other thing? We can, we have, we've done it, and now we're going to do more.
We just have to have that inner character, resilience, persistence to do what you want to do and have the passion to do that. Actions speak louder than words. We should let our words teach and our actions speak.
I like to say, be so good they can't ignore you. And I think that that's incumbent upon us to be competent.
It will be very nice when we get to the point where we can write letters of recommendation and we don't have to say something like, this is an incredibly strong female applicant. Let's take the word female out of that and just say, this is an incredibly strong applicant and you would love to have her in your program. I think Ruth Jackson Orthopedic Society is just a critically important organization within the umbrella of the AAOS. If you think about the AAOS as the parent and all of these other organizations as the children, RJOS represents a really important child.
Yeah, we're very fortunate to have commitment and support from the leadership of AAOS. I mean, currently, Dr. Buddy Savoy is president. He also happens to be my department chair here at Tulane, so very fortunate to have a huge amount of support from him.
So there's no question that the Ruth Jackson Society has played an integral role of improving access for females and for minorities into orthopedics. I think any organization that does that, whether it's the Gladden Society, Nth Dimension, Perry Initiative, all these things are kind of role models, and Ruth Jackson was the first. It's the first one to welcome maybe something different into orthopedics, and I think that difference is critical going forward. Ruth Jackson's very important. We've always appreciated the symbiotic relationship with the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons. I think their role going forward is just as critical as it was in the past.
I think RJOS has evolved over time. The memberships become more diverse, and I think there's a very clear commitment on the part of the leaders of the organization to make a difference in the lives of those who are not the majority.
RJOS has definitely become more of a organization where we can make statements and support those statements, and I think people are listening.
My first Ruth Jackson meeting was when I was a resident 10 years ago, and when I walked into that meeting, I was one of maybe 3 black women in the room. And this year, I just took great pride to see the largest meeting that we've had with Ruth Jackson and the overwhelming representation from women of color and the younger generation of women.
Yeah, I think for our members in general to be part of RJOS is really powerful because, again, it's such a big group, such a large group of women in orthopedics in different stages of their career, and just being able to learn and take advantage of that vast experience.
RJOS is an organization that facilitates success for women in orthopedics. But it's also about connection, and that connection perhaps is not as important when you're a medical student. It starts to become important in residency, and then as you make that big leap forward into fellowship and on into your career, that connection, I think, becomes even more important.
With RJOS celebrating its 40th anniversary, I think it's a true testament to the empowerment that these strong women have provided other women in orthopedics. Because we're not here to tear each other down. This organization is to build each other up.
For me, the future seems bright because of the excellence of the young female faculty and the female residents that I've met.
In the last 40 years, we've done so much, and we are very grateful for the surgeons who have paved this road for us. And I think it's our responsibility to continue to build a future for those who come behind us.
It's a super exciting time to be in orthopedics, but in RJOS because we're driving it right now. From my little committee, I feel like I'm driving some change, and it's right for us to be impatient and want more done, but it's also a good perspective to see how far we've come. As we've seen in history, there's a chance of falling backwards if you let go of your speed. We can't rest on what we've achieved. Everyone's energized and excited to get to work.
So in the past 40 years, RJOS has accomplished a lot. But we still have work to do, right? We still are very much committed to working with our other colleagues who are also involved and interested in improving and supporting diversity in orthopedics.
RJOS is not stopping now. RJOS wants to commit to our younger members. We want to commit to exposure at the high school level. We want to reach those who maybe were not able to be reached before.
In the past 40 years, Ruth Jackson Orthopedic Society has accomplished a great deal, and it is worth celebrating. And the future is breaking down the barriers that still exist for women to be in leadership roles and to join our field in general. So we have work to do to provide the skill sets and to change the culture to allow women to be as successful as they want to be.
Celebrating 40 years of promoting women in orthopedics, the Ruth Jackson Orthopedic Society.